1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, test, test.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another let me calm down here. I thought the meeting was at 6. Good thing I rechecked and it's at 5:30. So I appreciate you all being here with us. Hopefully you had a snack so we can make it to about 11 o'clock again tonight because that was a fun day. Here we go. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Vernon's annotated civil statute, Article 625217, that the city of Smithfield will conduct a special called meeting, public hearing, and workshop on September the 6th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall, 317 Main Street, Smithfield, Texas. Call to order. We will go into discussion and workshop on the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. And if you want to speak, please sign up. Everybody sign up that wants to speak. Okay, take it away, Robert.
All right, thank you, council, mayor, and citizens for taking time out of your Wednesday afternoon to come sit inside the air conditioning and let's talk about the future. Today, specifically, I would like to cover the action items from the first workshop. We'll give you a review of the budget updates and changes. I would like to go over the 2023 compensation analysis. We'll discuss the proposed fee increases. I'll do a budget recap. What are we asking for? What are our requests? Talk about the tax rate and the tax note and then next steps. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please don't hesitate to ask. Next slide. There were 12 action items assigned from the last workshop. 75% of those items have been closed. The remaining items will be closed between now and the end of the calendar year. Next slide. Specifically, I'm going to go over these so you know where we are with respect to each of these items. Needed to forward the succession plan to the council. That was done on the 30th of August. We were asked to increase the charitable contributions in Department 155, replace that we took away, which basically was $8,000 or 50% of what was originally allocated. That's been put back and is reflected in your yellow sheets under Department 155. I was asked to perform a TML analysis, salary comparison analysis for my exempt employees. That's been done. We will review those results later on in the presentation. We were asked to go back to the well to find a way to get our base hourly wage for non-exempt employees from the $15.45 to $18. That required going back and identifying additional revenue sources to do such. We'll talk about those sources in my presentation in a moment. Part of the request or the assignment was to go back and take a look at how much revenue would raising the electric distribution fee by 10% or 1/2 cent from 0.05 cents to 5.5 cents. I have an analysis that we will cover on that as well. There was an action to extend and increase the frequency of the maintenance in the downtown area. You're not just downtown, but along Northeast, Northwest 2nd and 4th Street. Edwards guys did that. They weeded it and put down some Roundup, and we'll add that to their weekly rounds on Friday to make sure that our downtown remains attractive. Any help that the business owners want to give me would be much appreciated for the staff regarding maintaining the Main Street. Sorry, what? We were asked, or actually 2 of the council members agreed to create a task force to evaluate a possible annual membership fee for the recycling center. That task force did their work. Thank you, Councilmember Jenkins and Councilmember Washington. And we've come up with a possible annual fee for residents of $75. That's commercial and residential inside the city limits. $150 for those entities or people that want to recycle that live outside the city limits. And we'll talk about that fee as well later in the presentation. We're also asked to look at increasing the call out stipend and try to identify additional revenue to allow the fire department the ability to outfit new firemen. If you are at the Chamber of Commerce quarterly luncheon, the last one, Mr. Philip Slaughter gave a presentation, and pretty much it cost about $20,000 to outfit one fireman. By proposing a $5 service fee for each utility customer, we can bring in $97,500 of revenue, but I'll talk more about that in a moment. We were asked to put back or earmark some money for the 4th of July firework celebration. Take a look at, what is the difference between a drone show and a firework display? What would that cost be? Don't know. The drone people haven't called me back, but I have put in about $10K under residual ARPA funding from ARPA round 2 to cover that if we decide as a city entity to host that celebration again. I was asked to place the Workforce Training Center building agreement on a future agenda for discussion. That was a work in progress, and Ms. Joanna Morgan says that she's not going to be ready by the 11th, as I indicated to Councilmember Etheridge. That's going to be pushed out possibly till November, December, correct? Okay. Right. And then there were two recommendations to increase training: workplace harassment, cybersecurity, and then develop a conflict of interest form for council members and key employees serving on boards and commissions. So those three will remain open. We're going to target the 31st, have this done prior to the end of the calendar year. Questions? Okay, let's go to the next topic. Budget changes. What happened since the last workshop? As I just said, we earmarked $10,000 for a possible 4th of July fireworks / drone show celebration. We added the $8K back to the Community Services Cost Center, or Department 155. This next bullet was amazing. We knew initially that our insurance rates were going to be $88,000 higher. We didn't know if there were other plans available. So take what you have in your pocket and go research. We did that, and we're able to find another health insurance provider that reduced the cost by $82,000. And it's as good, if not a better plan than Aetna. So congratulations, Cynthia, for doing the work to make that happen. Yeah. Again, we were tasked to go back to the well, find the money to get our wages to an equitable and competitive rate. We did that, but it's going to take increasing some fees and rates. The bottom line is that we found the revenue to fully fund the equity, the cost of living, and the STEP program adjustments that you've been hearing over the past couple of weeks. There were 5 fees that we're going to talk about in subsequent charts. The delta year over year from last year to this year is $1 million, or $998,573. That's a 6.77% increase year over year from 2022. Total budget being $15.7 million. Next slide. All right, let's talk about the compensation analysis. Next slide. So we were tasked again to go back to the well to find additional monies to bring our base wage for hourly workers up from $15.45 to $18. Initially, we were able to bring it up to $16.76, but we were told go back to the well, and we did. But to do that, to bring it up to $18, that equates to a 16.5% equity adjustment across all of the hourly employees. We are requesting, and here's the analysis of that hourly wages. I took a look at the municipalities in our area, And you can see prior to the action, it's $15.45. After the action, getting up to $18, we're now third in line with what other municipalities are paying their employees. Also took a look at the private sector, and you can see where we align now with the proposed increase. So we're up there with McCoy's and Bluebonnet Electric. Questions about that? We also took a look at our.
I do have
Yes.
one question, point of clarification on the $18. Does that apply to only full-time or does it include part-time? How's part-time?
$18 is for full-time only. Part-time has a different scale. I believe, Cynthia, we're going up to same percent. Yeah. Lower rate. Yeah, so most of them were at $11. Okay, we started off asking, the first budget workshop was for a 5% cost of living adjustment for salaried employees. As per the action item that I previously reported, that we were requested to go do a TML survey. I have that information on the next chart, but I want to get through this chart accordingly. The STEP program was something that the Smithville Police Department wanted to implement to bring or align them with what Bastrop PD does, Elgin PD does, excuse me, and what most law enforcement agencies do. They have this STEP program based upon years of experience and compensation accordingly. We've already gone over that, so I won't spend a lot of time, but the cost of that program was $291,000. We were able to put $50 a month aside for each employee for the health reimbursement account. That's $50 a month that is accruable and can be carried over year to year. That $50 is reflected in the 28% burden rate that is listed in each of the corresponding areas of increase, the equity, the COLA, and the STEP. The total cost impact, as I've already said, is $668,000, which includes 28% burden and overtime. Next chart. Okay, here's where it gets interesting regarding the salary survey. So we went to TML 2023 and pulled their data. We requested or did a query for all communities between 3,000 and 5,000 citizens. Understand that the majority of the salary employees working for the city of Smithville have multiple job functions. Myself, I'm city manager and airport manager. The city secretary, Jennifer, is also the HR director and public affairs officer. Jill is an economic development director and grant writer. So taking that into consideration, it was hard to find apples to apples comparison. So we took a look at these 15 total, 12 to 15 communities. And we also added, just for comparison's sake, Bastrop, Elgin, and LaGrange, because that in reality, who we are going to lose our people to, someone local. When you did that, that did raise the average, but it's more realistic of what the rate actually reflects. So in doing that, you can see the various numbers and ranges in this column right here. Pre-adjustment of the 8%, 75% of my staff are below the 3 to 5% target average for TML. After the distribution of the 8% COLA or equity adjustment, 100% of my staff are between 3 and 5% above the TML average. Now, there were some individuals, even after the 8%, that were still low. So we took action for those individuals as well to ensure they got up to the 3 to 5%. I guess note to self, in the future, that needs to be black because no one can see that. Sorry, guys. Questions? No questions. Thank you. Let me move on. So how do you fund this? Well, we're proposing, again, go back to the well. That was the instruction. Went to the well and found where we could find, next slide, how to fund these things. In the first workshop, we spent a lot of time on the garbage and water rates, so I'm not going to do much there. Hit the advance, please. Again. Raising the garbage rate by $10 will help us pay for the contract increases that Waste Management has levied on us the past 2 years, which we did not pass on to the customers. It will also help cover the cost of leaf and limb and maintaining the brush dump on the hill. It takes about $45,000 a year to tub grind all the branches that people bring to it. So this will help offset those costs. Next slide. Again. Okay, so we talked about the water rate, adding $1 more per 1,000 gallons usage. And these averages are all based on, 12,000 gallons per month for an average family of 4. So that's where these numbers come from. So if you use 12,000, our rates allow the first 2,000 covered by the base rate. You increase the dollar from $3.50 to $4.50. That's about $6 more a month. But this brings in $150K of revenue. Next slide. All right, let's talk about the distribution fee. Again, we were asked to look at how much revenue would raising the distribution fee for residential and commercial accounts bring into the city. Next slide. Next button. 184. Nope, back. $184,000 in revenue if we choose to raise the distribution rate. Now, most of these rates where we evaluated, we tried to give the citizens an opportunity. These are rates that you can control. If you raise a base rate, there's nothing you can do. You can affect the distribution fee rate by not using so much electricity or not using so much water. So we tried to identify those fee increases that you still had some control. Okay. Next slide. This is one I'm pretty proud of. Hit it again. Hit it again. There you go. Yes, they do. That was at the one of the fires, Brookshire Brothers. We took it out there. Chicken. Yeah. That's okay. Okay, so right now on most, it's kind of strange. We have some unwritten things that go on in town that we need to tighten up. On your utility bill, you will see $1 contribution to the volunteer fire department, right? But not everybody makes that contribution. One, because it's not given to anyone but residential at the moment. And two, for whatever reason, back 30 years ago, if you said you didn't want that $1 on your bill, you called it to be taken off. I'm recommending eliminating that. Every utility customer pay $5 a month to help fund the fire department. Okay. This will allow increased per call out stipend for the firemen from $10 to $15. So when these guys are out there fighting a fire for 15 and 20 hours, you're giving them $15. So they're not going to get rich off of it. It's just a thank you. Hey, we'll help cover your gas to get to the station. Okay. More importantly, it will provide the revenue needed to outfit additional firefighters. The Smithville Volunteer Fire Department has reduced the minimum age, or is in the process of reducing the minimum age from 21 to 18 years old. Hopefully that'll get them more people here. And if you take a look, you may not be able to see it. On average, it's about 300 call outs a year. Okay, how many firemen do you have, Tyrone?
43.
But how many of those 43 are inactive or reserve?
About, I could say about 8.
Okay,
Then we got like reserve about 4 of them.
so on average, how many, this is not an interrogation, I'm just trying to help educate.
Go ahead.
How many people typically show up to a fire? I guess it depends on, again, what time. 2 o'clock in the morning, a lot less than you would on a Wednesday afternoon. So
Well-
what do you get normally, average?
Probably about 5 or 6.
5 or 6?
Yeah.
Can you use more people?
Yes.
Can you use the money to help buy the equipment?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. One of the things that this is going to help also has always been criticized. Well, why do you have to send over $1 million from the utility fund to the general fund? because this is one of the non-revenue generating cost centers that we have to support to provide the service. If you find a source of revenue to fund this going forward, we can slowly reduce the amount of the interfund transfer. Okay. Next slide. This is the result of what the task force did regarding the recycling center. Right now, the cost to run the center, we're operating at a loss, $67,000 per year to run the recycling center. The revenue we get is $6,000. Most of the people, a lot of the people who recycle aren't from here. They're out of towners. We had somebody come from Bastrop with a 20-yard roll off and just started unloading. I said, oh, hold on. How much did you pay to unload that? Nothing. Exactly. Okay. So what we want to do to try to get a handle, next, hit the button. I don't know how many people are going to continue to want to recycle because they have to pay, but we're talking $75 a year for resident, $150 for non-resident per year. Here's a sample of what the little membership cards would look like. You would come up to the recycling center and show your membership card, and you can be able to recycle. If you don't have one, you'll be told where to go. If you stop, y'all, that was funny. If you have a roll off of 20 yards, we're gonna handle bulk recycling on a case by case basis, because some people do bring in 16-foot trailers or 20-yard roll offs to dump cardboard. So to have this effectively work, we're going to change the hours of operation where we always have someone there. It's always manned, because when you turn your back, they're throwing cats, dead dogs, and all kinds of stuff in the recycling thing. So we want to have a better control of that entity. We propose implementing this on the 1st of January. We will market and communicate this between now and the time that occurs. Yes, sir. Questions? Okay.
How do we handle glass at this point?
We do not handle glass.
Can we handle glass?
LaGrange is the one. Only place you can take glass is to LaGrange. What'd you ask? I'm sorry.
Can we do it? I've had several citizens ask, talking about the recycling fee proposal, that they would have no problem with this if we were to handle glass.
Glass takes a whole nother level of support and machinery. So you're $67,000 now just to get a machine in to crush glass and the transport. And it's not going to make you any more money.
Wanted to make sure we had the public discussion about that as a potential solution in the future, or something that we can't do.
Understood. Okay, next slide, please. So this is, okay, what are all these fees? What's it going to cost to average Joe or Josephine? And typically this impacts the utility customers. I had residents and taxpayers. That's incorrect. This impacts utility customers. And there's the corresponding per month increase, $36 per utility customer, or $435 per year. I gave you a wrong number on the first page. The revised budget's $999,537, not $998,537. So make that note. If you take a look at all the fees, the percent increase for equity or payroll is 68% of this $999,000 is going to go to equity adjustments to provide a competitive wage for hourly workers. Next chart. You have a handout. This is some proposals that we're doing for the other fees that don't impact everyone per se. It's very specific to what you were doing, like funeral plots have gone up from $750 to $1,000. Building permits from 35 cents to 45 cents. And you can see the fees accordingly. Do you have any questions about those fees? And there's schedules up here if you don't have one. And by the way, all of this information has been posted to the website. Okay. Questions? Next slide. Okay, here's the ask, the requests. Asking for a 6.7 increase over last year's budget. We still do have to make a utility transfer of 1.24 million. It's about 19,000 less than last year. The proposed tax rate is 0.548952, a slight increase over 2022. We've already talked about equity adjustments, cost of living, and step compensation. We're also requesting a $3 million tax note. Next slide. Let me hit the button. You've seen that on the prior slide. Hit it again. Average impact to customers by raising rates and fees is $36 a month or $435 a year. If you do not recycle, next slide, it's $30 a month or $360 a year. Next slide. Lastly, I've made one change given citizen feedback or comments from the prior workshop. We have nixed the downtown lighting upgrade. That was like serving Limburger cheese. Everybody kind of turned their nose up at it. So instead, we can put more monies toward facilities improvements. One of the huge things that we just found out is that we have a security camera, a cyber risk with the cameras that we have. And we're looking to replace those cameras. And so instead of the lights, we're going to do cameras and possibly more fire department equipment.
We're going to use a different vendor than who did the
Yes.
stuff in the chamber.
Yes. Well, it's for CATA. We're looking at,
Because it's like $350,000, right?
yeah, it's 109 cameras.
Pretty expensive.
Well, it's
proposition.
109
Yeah.
cameras, but here's the thing. There's a whole nother presentation I'm going to do on this. It's a 10-year contract, fully covered, 100% warranty on everything. The license agreement's good for 10 years. So it's an investment that's going to have some good results. And the ability or the capability of, to be able to call up videos for things that happen around town. We've never had that capability. And I have another presentation at another time to address that. Next chart. Next slide. Okay, so I guess it's time for discussion. Right now, we'll take notes as to what you want us to change or do between now and Monday. Where we do adopt the tax rate and the proposed budget. Once that's done, we'll go back to the each of my direct reports and we'll complete our departmental goals and objectives and complete performance appraisals accordingly. Next slide. Stay informed, get involved, make a difference. Next slide. Questions?
Mayor, may I make a statement, opening remark?
Let everybody make their statements and then whoever signed up to speak, then what's wrong? What'd he do? Yes, we'll start with Mitch making comments and then we'll go to citizen comments, okay? And a few of the latecomers, did you want to sign up to speak? You're all good? Okay, thank you. All right, Mitch, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager Campbell, for another great presentation. First of all, it's always refreshing and encouraging and quite frankly motivating to see this many people in the audience and to have received feedback from dozens of people, mainly in the last 24 hours. But there's been a lot of feedback since the first budget workshop, and it's greatly appreciated. And it does motivate us to know that everyone cares and is involved. And of course, we have to thank the city manager and his staff for their tireless hours spent putting together these meetings for us, because it does take a tremendous amount of time from them. And I'd like to say to everyone here, and especially my colleagues on this side of the dais, that we all must listen to the voices and opinions and recommendations of each other. Don't look for agendas or motives, just listen to the words and let's make decisions based on logical facts here. We don't have to rush this process. We do have to get this right. The city manager has done yeoman's work tackling the action items that we gave him from the first workshop. We have the opportunity here during this budget process, the most important process of the year, in my opinion. We've got the opportunity to invest in our city by taking care of a long neglected need to compensate city staff at equitable levels. Tonight's proposed budget includes a 16.5% increase for hourly employees and an 8% COLA for salaried employees. And I can be corrected on the specifics of that at any time by anyone. What we have not done yet is address the revenue side of the equation. We cannot continue to cover increases in expenses by raising fees and rates. I'd like to see us consider reallocating a portion of the $1 million increase in spending to specifically target revenue generation. We did not take action yet on creation of an economic development department. I want to see a position in that department that eats, breathes, and sleeps, increasing our sales tax revenue and other revenue generating sources. Let's invest in revenue generation to avoid future increases in fees. I appreciate hearing all of your thoughts from on this side and out in the audience after we hear more from the citizens. Thank you.
Very good. We'll go to citizen comments. Hi, Jenny. You want to grab that wire? Can you get Jenny? Never mind.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Bush, 204th Avenue, Queen of the Hill. I'm just here on general support for our city council to provide us with a balanced budget. I am opposed to spending more money, seeking loans, or ways to get more money when we don't have it. In other words, it's like me, I can't go out and buy groceries and use my credit card. I just against my principles. So basic costs, basic needs need to be taken care of through defined revenue. I leave it to you to find out how to do that, but I'm kind of coming up with this thing that we're not really ready to just go with these numbers that we've been given here, which just showed up online this morning. And I can't see how a raise of COLA that was proposed at 5% suddenly jumped up to 3%, 8%, which leaves us, all of our salaried employees, 3% above the norm. Why didn't it just stay at 5% and let all of our salaried employees get up to norm? Anyway, I'm sure I'll have something else to talk about. I'm not going to be very excited about paying $75 per resident. Maybe you mean per household for our recycle center, or maybe you mean per neighborhood. But I'd like to look at that as a fee. I'd be happy to pay $5, but $75 just blows me away annually. I mean, that's too much. And then later on, maybe I'll be talking about other items. I signed up for other stuff, but mostly that's what I wanted to say. I'd take more time working this out. What we've been presented here tonight just doesn't jive with all the folks that I'm talking to. And there's probably, a good 50 people in the stretch that I reach. So, compounded a few more people, I think, there's concern that we're spending too much and not bringing in enough. Thank you.
Hey there, my name's Jeannie Ralph, 1402 Northeast 7th Street in Smithville, and 300 Short Street is my office. I sent an email out earlier to the council, and I'm just going to read that. Good evening, council members and citizens. I hope this email finds you well. It is in response to the COLA raises being asked for the upcoming budget. This economy is performing poorly on several key points. It's important for me to note this in the email, that this does not deny the importance of our city employees' financial well-being. But I do want to emphasize the consequences of implementing such raises during an economic downturn. And here are some of those points that can be made. Economic stability. During an economic downturn, individuals, governments, and businesses struggle to maintain financial stability. I know this as I am an individual taxpayer in the city and a business owner. Providing cost of living raises can put additional strain on an already fragile budget, potentially leading to layoffs, reduced investments, and even business closures. Common sense must prevail during times like these. I have been a realtor, as I'm sure most of you know, and I have watched my business grow since I started selling for others in 2008. This year, 2023, will be my worst year yet and will be a downturn from the past 15 years. And it is a direct result of this national economy. Interest rates have skyrocketed and goods prices to boot. It is my belief that economic stability might be more important than individual salaries in this such as time. With that being said, I believe our safety and security has got to be of utmost concern in this town right now. So any extra funds we have should go to police and fire protection. Next point is fiscal responsibility. Arguably, during tough economic times, it is important for all of us to practice fiscal responsibility. This usually means tightening our budgets and making sacrifices to ensure long-term sustainability. I'm afraid that cost of living raises might be seen as an unwillingness to share the burden of these economic difficulties that we're all feeling right now. Next point, unintended consequences. Providing cost of living raises when the economy is struggling may lead to unintended consequences. Smithville has already had many business closures, some due to the economy, some not, but it could discourage businesses from hiring new employees, investing in expansion, or even maintaining current staffing levels. Alternative solutions. Instead of an immediate cost of living, maybe we could look for alternative solutions to support our wonderful city workers during these temporary, hopefully, economic downturns. These could include extra days off, like their birthdays, extra vacation days, rotating early leave days, just to name a few. Again, this should be temporary and we take another look at this in another year, but some kind of an in-kind service. Next point, long-term planning. Prayerfully, these economic difficulties will be temporary and it might be more beneficial for our government, our city, to weather the storm in the short term. Implementing cost of living raises during a downturn may not be sustainable or otherwise when considering the broader economic picture, which these days and times seem to be changing on a daily basis. Let's face it, me and other citizens will be the ones paying for these raises. And if our salaries are going down, as in my case, or remaining the same, then how does that justify us having to dig down deeper? These raises have to come from sales tax, and it looks like we're not hitting that mark. The numbers just don't add up right now, and numbers don't lie. Again, I think we have a wonderful city staff. I love going in and seeing all these gals. I love this small town with all my heart. It's home, but we all have to pitch in to get through this perilous times. And prayerfully next year, we can come back like gangbusters and get the raises they so deserve. But if we are relying on so many of us with taxes and fees, I'm just not seeing that. Okay.
Come back, Jeannie, come back. On a happy note, tell us about the music festival you've organized.
Oh,
Tell us something, happy note.
October 7th.
October 7th.
Starts at 1 o'clock. We'll go to, I think, 10 or 11 that night.
Right
between
here on Main
1st and
Street.
2nd. And again, economy. Our donations are down. People are like, I'm sorry, I can't help you this year.
How many sponsors do you think you have?
I have maybe 7 or 8. One of them is really nice,
Very good.
you know, so that's going to get us over that hump.
Yes, ma'am.
But anyway, that's again.
Well,
part of it.
I look forward to it. I think it's going to be great for our economy and
It's gonna be
people
fun.
come to town and
Always fun.
enjoy, always fun. Thank you for all your hard work.
Drove here from Austin, so sorry. Yeah, I had to fly in.
Traffic coming from Austin.
Yeah, as you do.
Ah.
Pace Davis, 707 Bishop. First, I want to start off with a question. All right, so this is for Robert, I believe. Last budget workshop, Chief Repka presented about kind of a two-part raise, right? So bringing his guys on the new scale and then bumping them up to the year they'd be on the scale. Is that still planned for the future? Is that still, or is that built in here now?
It is built in there now, given council's instructions.
So they'll go all the way.
They
if
go
they're-
all the way to
okay,
where they need to be. Yes, sir.
Cool. Just wanted to clarify that before I start talking. Great. Okay. So unfortunately I saw these notes. I saw the budget, but I didn't see the notes until about 4 o'clock. So I have nothing prepared, but I got to read through them and I'd like to comment on them. You guys had me 2 weeks ago at the workshop. I was all in. I was all in on the trash. I was all on the water. I see the situation the city's in. People need their money. They need to get paid. But I saw the electrical increase now that you've requested. And again, I think this is as a council, not necessarily every single one of you, but as a council, you've requested this from Robert. And so I want to address the council specifically on this, right? You asked for a way to make money off permits and fees. Okay, those are optional. You can opt in. You don't have to get a permit. You don't have to build. You don't have to replumb. You decided that the recycling center is an albatross around the city's neck. And so instead of losing money on it, it will actually possibly make money based on the $78. I mean, if 1,000 homes opt in, you will actually make money next year. And then we will keep our crown for highest electrical distribution fees in the state. And that's where I think, I think that maybe you're digging a little too hard. You got 85 city employees, 70 something full-time, roughly 10 part-time. Is that right? 87. Okay. So they're great and they all deserve to get paid more. But you're rectifying a 2-decade long problem in one budget year off of the other 3,800 residents of the city. Because that's who will pay for all this. And so I think that my two concerns are this, right? This is a problem that obviously predates today and predates last year and the year before, okay, that hasn't been rectified. And part of the reason it hasn't been rectified is because there is a lot of will to stop people from coming here and opening businesses and moving here and growing. And so instead of increasing sales tax revenue, which would take care of this, you're instead going to take out of the same group of people that hasn't grown. I mean, in 2 decades, the same number of people have lived here and they're going to pay more fees every year to get to wherever you need to go. Because although there's talk about economic development, nothing's actually been done up to this point, right? And so we're in this spot again, right? And again, this is only my 3rd year here, but I assume this has happened before. And my second comment I'd like to make is, yeah, no, it's not long. Is that there's nothing in here that prevents you all from coming back and digging in our pockets again next year when you've got another project and no new sales revenue has materialized and no new building has occurred. And so I think that that's something that I'm concerned about, right? You're asking for $1 million. If someone makes $40,000 working for the 911 operator for the city, you're going to take 1% of their entire pre-tax income if they are the head of household. Okay. And that will be the increase on that household, right? So anyway, I think it's a little too far. I think you've dug a little too deep. I really like the first budget and there's a big increase. I think that you should shelve it and try to fix it next year. Again, we need to give people a raise, but again, 3,800 bearing the cost for the 87. And I just don't know that that's good math. Thank you.
You Pace. Next. So we're still in the public hearing. We're going to go into the public hearing next. Okay. So item number 3 is we're going into the public hearing. So it'll be public hearing on the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. Robert, is this for you? Give us more.
It's not. This is where the public has the opportunity to talk about the budget and then.
You have
so
more
you
people.
kind
Okay.
of already. There you go.
Carol Jackson. Thank you.
Or how is, I mean, I want everybody to be able to speak, but how is what we just did different than what we're doing right now?
Well, I missed it because I was talking to Cynthia,
Okay.
but we should have gone into the public hearing.
Oh.
And then had people comment on
Yeah.
item 3 or 4 versus
Yeah,
comment on
so-
discussion. of the
So
budget.
just a point of order, we're going to have everybody that wants to speak about the budget in general speak, and then the council members will have an opportunity to talk among, okay, thank you.
Okay,
Point of clarification there. We're going to do what? We're going back into discussion on the budget because item 2 just got closed. We're going to have more discussion, at least on the council, about the budget. Okay, thank you.
okay. I'm Carol Jackson at 300 4th Avenue. And I have a couple specific points about the budget and then a general comment. Specifically, I think on the recycling, that if we charge $75 a year, that will discourage recycling. And if it is losing all that money, just personally, I would say just tell people to go to LaGrange. It's a fabulous recycling center. They take glass. I have to go there for my glass anyway. So that's just my suggestion, because I think at $75, no one will do it. Or only the very virtuous people will do it. And then when I was looking at the comparison of the salaries, I think we're more like LaGrange than certainly Bastrop or Elgin. And LaGrange, the salaries are much lower than ours. So I would adjust that and have us be, of course, we're not as far from Austin as LaGrange. So I would adjust what our medium salary should be between maybe Bastrop and LaGrange, and not try to, average Bastrop, Elgin, and LaGrange, because we just have such fewer population and income. And then just in general, I am so much for small government. Let the money stay in people's pockets and they will spend it better than any government. As awesome and brilliant as you guys are, the citizens, the money needs to stay in our pockets, and we will do with it better than you guys. We will be more generous. We will make better business decisions on how to improve our storefronts than, anything government can do. And I just would, I think probably most of you guys think that citizens make better financial decisions in general than the government. Government is needed for certain things, but the overall emphasis should be small government. I hope that's your sentiment, because it's certainly mine. Okay, any questions?
Yes, please, Ms. Jackson. I'm curious or interested in if you would elaborate further on what you think the impact of, if there were 2 choices, if we charge a fee for recycling because we're losing $60,000 a year on it, or if we shut down the recycling center.
Well,
Which one of those is going to discourage recycling? Because I certainly don't want to do that.
well, it's just 20 minutes to LaGrange. I have to go there for glass anyway. What I would really wonder and research is why the heck are we, why it isn't it paying for itself? I know Bastrop also charges, but why? You know, that's crazy that they can't make it work.
Crazy that we're losing $60,000.
Yes, that it is that it doesn't make money. You know, I would say, I would think that minimizing opening up a new landfill would make it balance out, that yes, recycle, but so we don't have to, pay, to acquire land for another landfill. Does that, but I haven't researched it. So I would say there is a task force. I understand.
Yeah, and part of that is, if, I was under the understanding that LaGrange looks at IDs, and if you're not in Fayette County, they don't want you going there.
They've never looked at mine.
Well,
And I
they
get
have
my
looked at mine.
They have.
Yes, they have. So, but that's not even the deal. The
So
other thing is,
we are not allowed.
according to the rules from LaGrange, we're
Well,
not.
darn.
Okay, you can check that. if
There
you
goes
want
my
to.
plan.
But the other thing is, the amount that we get when they compact and they do all that, that's not offsetting the electricity, everything that it takes to run it, all the things, the guy that has to be there, the people that come on the weekend that completely destroy the place.
Hmm.
I mean, if you go in there, if you go by there on Monday, it looks like, you know what on earth.
And who's doing that?
These are the people that just are not monitored. They don't care. They bring everything they've
Oh,
got.
they
They
think
just
they're
br-
recycling.
Yeah, they think they're
Okay.
recycling. So we have to have some sort of way to manage it and make it work.
Well,
if the
even
city
Bastrop,
doesn't,
Bastrop doesn't either. Now, I don't know if LaGrange is losing money. Have you checked on that?
I have
Okay.
no idea. I did not check on that. I was
Okay.
just tasked to get it to where it did not lose money. That's what we did. We went down there and I'll tell you, I've got pictures of when the guy brought the 20-foot dump
Mm.
trailer in there. He was putting styrofoam, wrap, everything. He did not want to do anything. He just wanted to dump. And he was told by somebody that he could just come and bring it there.
Well, and waste management, why aren't our recyclables bringing in money? I would say it's also a waste management issue.
From what I understand on that, Waste Management wants to use the arm trucks to do that. And we cannot, they will not fit in our alleys. They would tear up our electrical and everything else. This has been asked of Robert and he's explained this before. Okay, it's a deal that the trucks that they have, how they do the recycling,
Mm.
they lift and
Mm.
do all of that, and we can't bring them down our alleys.
Mm.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I think having them go house to house and picking up is definitely not the answer. Personally, I think everyone should be have enough to take their recycling to the recycling center, break down your boxes. Oh, I also think while I'm on it, one trash pickup a week. I have never lived in a place, I've been here 3 years, where it comes twice a week and they vacuum your leaves. I have never seen that. So I would say, we are getting gold service and we don't need it. We don't need it. So I'm sorry. Can
No.
I say something happy?
Yeah, this is just, Robert knows this. This is just too tempting for me. I'm sorry. This has been 2 years plus that I've talked about for the longest time. The Methodist men handled a lot of the work at the recycle. And I remember posing the question on several occasions. If you had a business that had no real estate cost and no labor cost and it still loses money, is that a business you want to invest in? I think the problem is, how do you get out of it? And how do you transition? There has been talk of when the waste management contract comes up in a couple of years. I think everybody's well aware that the recycle issue is one that needs to be solved. Whether waste management and curbside is the answer or not, I think you have to answer, what is the purpose of recycling? Is it to do good for the earth? If so, the goal should be, or the KPI should be, how much participation can we get? And convenience at curbside tends to be the way that most cities achieve participation. I think it's even more challenging when you're in a rural area and you have to drive 20 minutes. I think your participation level's down. The challenges that Councilmember Jenkins pointed out are legitimate, the alleys and the equipment and all. I just think for budget purposes, I mean, it's a great question and it has just troubled me beyond, I just can't let it go, but it doesn't really rise to the materiality threshold when you're talking about a $15 million budget. But things like free leaf and limb, which we're now trying to generate some revenue for, 2 times a week pickup, recycle, that's all part of a really, really meaningful discussion that I think needs to happen kind of in its own space. And I think the council will do that at some point soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
But thanks for the
And
comment.
maybe we can tell LaGrange, we will pay you 67,000 a year and let our people come, you know, or less. Let's try to make it less, 50,000. Since we lose money.
Let me ask let me add some input. Go ahead,
So
Ms. Jackson, stay up there. 75 was a target and we're thinking 100 people would join. Drop it down to 50 and maybe you get 150. I'm the 75 number. Mr. Jenkins, what do you think about that?
I'm never tied to was never tied to the number. I know a lot of people, I've talked to them and I've
Yeah.
heard from $5, which does not make any sense, on up to 25. But I believe if we're going to do it, we have to offset at least
Okay,
half of
fair
the
enough.
money. So, you know, and that's going to be $50 if you get 100 people.
Well, maybe people will do it.
Mayor, can I say a couple things? So, I mean, thank you. You're coming up with some great ideas and maybe we do need to take a look at,
May have another question for you. Stay up, please. Thank you.
we do need to take a look at, maybe look at what Bastrop does, look at what LaGrange does, look at what we're doing, look at what Flatonia is doing, and some sort of do an objective, analysis of the three. Now, I know that this contract that we have with Waste Management is for another 2 years, Robert. 2026. And I tend to agree about the twice a week pickup and then, maybe do a poll to the community. Hey, look, is once a week pickup going to be fine or not? And if it is, maybe we save some money there because most families probably, maybe enjoy the twice a week pickup, but it might cost.
Well, I
more
tell you,
money.
people will break down their boxes and recycle them
Yeah,
if you only come once
once
a
a
week.
week, right?
Yeah.
So I think we do need on this task force, though, let's get some real good cost comparisons and look at what the other communities are doing and find out, is LaGrange making money? Are they losing money? I don't know if we know the answers to those questions.
Well, I do
So-
know one thing about LaGrange. Have you been to LaGrange?
Yes,
The recycle center there is
beautiful.
huge.
It's
It's a
gorgeous.
huge facility.
Yep.
Number one, we don't have the room. We don't have the equipment that they have. We don't have, I don't know if that's operated by a third party. I think it may be part of it. But we don't have the manpower or anything to do that. I have no idea how they're doing it. Maybe the glass and the cans and the more expensive stuff that they're getting is offsetting their cost enough. But we definitely within the city do not have the space that they have to operate like they operate.
thank you.
This question can go both, and Carol, Ms. Jackson, I respect your thoughts because for me, you're a barometer of what a lot of people think. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
No
I'm
problem.
going to. And Councilman Jenkins and Washington both, is this almost to the point where it's a binary decision? We either charge for recycling or we shut down the recycling center? I mean,
Well,
how would you feel if we shut it down?
I think it would be sad and I would think we would look toward making it like LaGrange. Find the land, make it profitable. But again, Waste Management, somehow they need to pay for the recycling that we send to them. I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, that has to go into it too.
We don't send Waste Management. It's Balcones, I think, that picks up, right? Yeah, we have different, that's the problem is they
There's a
don't do
couple
that.
other different companies that pick
Yeah.
up the materials, whether it's cardboard or plastic. Balcones Recycling is our main one that picks it up.
Okay. And
So it's not Waste Management.
okay. And is that the same the one that LaGrange and Bastrop, does everyone?
I have no idea who they use.
Well, it's just weird to me. that
And
it
their
doesn't make
prices
sense.
dropped a few years ago. We were getting good revenue on some of that. And this year it's just totally dropped off. We've checked into it and they're just not paying for it. We can't get them to hardly pick it up. So.
And,
Yeah.
and one of the other things, I mean, you're talking about make it more like LaGrange and all of that. As I said, you're just saying, go find the land. Well, we're kind of landlocked and we don't have it in town. So we don't have that. But the task force was just, we were given this, what, 2 weeks ago? And we were tasked with finding a way to make it, where it wasn't a drain on the city. The only way we could see that was to have a membership and charge for it, or just charge every household on the electric bill for it. I would rather make that a voluntary. If you want to recycle, you pay for that to do it. I would rather not just put that on the electric bill. I want it to be, this is something you want to do and it's something that you are involved in and want to do better.
In that people pay for what they value. And if we charge $75 a year, we're going to find out just how important, recycling is to people. And with regards to a larger facility, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine how many millions of dollars it might be to go find that type of facility. And I can think of far, far better ways to spend 3 or 4 or 5 million, including an industrial park land for the city, something that promotes economic development. And I would like to reserve some time later to talk about, when we get to looking at the budget, share kind of how I view this budget for me personally as being necessarily paired with a legitimate and intellectually honest and open discussion about economic development. We have absolutely got to solve the revenue side of this. We can't look at just raising people's fees. We have to make the pie bigger. I feel strongly about what we're doing here, and I applaud the people that have put hours into this. I think our employees have spent many, many years when times were good and didn't reap the benefits of that. I think it's the right thing to do for me personally, but I also think we absolutely can't just keep going to the citizen well over and over again.
I agree. Okay, thanks. And thanks for all.
Good evening, council, mayor, staff. Thank you all for what you do here. I'm Michelle Rutherford. I'm at 704 Main Street. I'm not here to speak for or against taxes or the budget. I'm actually here because Mr. Jenkins kind of gave a little challenge to citizens. I watched the last meeting online, and I do appreciate the ability to watch the meetings online because it's very rare I can make it to an evening meeting. Anyway.
It's our thinking.
So, Mr. Jenkins, you had mentioned something about challenging the citizens of Smithville to come up with ideas on the budget or revenue. That's the way I took it. You might not have meant it that way, but that's the way I took it. So I had emailed each of you after that meeting, and I just wanted to give one idea that I had. I think we have such an incredible gem of a park over at Riverbend Park. I've been looking at different ways that people find tent and RV camping, whether it be online websites or apps. And right now we are only charging $20 a night. We have 19 RV spots. You can tent camp there and you can RV camp there with electric and water and the gray water disposal. You've got showers, you've got full bathrooms and showers over there, and you have huge facilities where people could come for conferences. Like there's so many groups that do camping and vintage camper enthusiasts, and they're always looking for places to have 3-4 day long conferences where they come, groups of people come, and they spend their days
here and they have classes, you know, how to teach someone to hook up their camper, how to fix a tire, how, you know, just different things. But there are lots of these camping groups. And I think if we marketed to these groups, we could fill those camping spaces a lot more than we're doing now. And I think that $20 a night is way too low for RV camping. The sites that I saw just on one app alone were between $60 and $80 a night. And that was for RV camping. Now, tent camping was much lower. We're probably in the right range, $20 a night, but we're right here next to Busher State Park, Bastrop State Park. And I think that we just have such a gem over there that we're not highlighting. And so that would be my, I guess, contribution to an idea that we could maybe look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Brittany Olvera, 105 Fifth Avenue on the Hill. Glad to see this meeting doesn't have quite so many fireworks. It's a little less entertaining, but we can talk budget and numbers. I have a question just on the budget, and I understand, Mr. Campbell, you put the budget together and present to the council. Okay. So we're comparing ourselves, or you're kind of bracketing us in an average on your slide with Bastrop. And Bastrop has a population of almost 12,000. With an annual budget, they have a revenue of 185 million. So is Smithville anticipating we're going to have 11,000 people here living next year? We think we're going to go up that high?
No, not at all. The whole intent with this was to compare with where people might go and where we've lost people in the past, with either the PD or other individuals. They go to Bastrop, they go to Elgin, they go to LaGrange. And to give you comparisons as to what those positions are being paid. I thought it was prudent to provide that. And if the council tells me otherwise, we can go back and readjust, but that's what I used.
Okay, well, that answers that. I appreciate that. So when you take two cities that are equivalent to ours with the same kind of budget and the same kind of population, and then you throw in a third one that's way different, it is going to interject us. It's going to change that number. I mean,
Well,
you're not taking an average of three cities that are comparable. Am I
Well,
correct?
The apples to apples comparison, as I tried to present, it's not apples to apples because like I said, I'm a city manager and airport manager. Bastrop and Elgin and LaGrange, you know, the city manager doesn't fulfill those two roles. My HR director, city secretary, public information officer. So it's hard to really do apples to apples comparisons.
Well, okay, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Because you brought up the point. How much time do you spend on the airport? How many? I don't see planes flying in all the time.
We have 25 flights a day that come in and out of that airport.
Okay, and how much time do your reviewer?
It depends, right? It depends on what's going on. Like any other thing, I wear many hats. And some days I'm working on airport grants. I do try to go out there at least 2 times a week to check on the people and the hangars that we have out there that are revenue generating, by the way. With all the fires that happened, I drop off food to the firefighters out there. So I do spend, but 5 to 10%. It depends on what's going on.
So I'm just trying to, if we're going to compare apples to apples, and you're trying to tell me that you spend a lot of your time doing 2 jobs, not just one, where
No, I have about
city.
17 jobs, but again,
Well, and it's a choice, sir.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
agreed.
I mean, it's a choice.
And I
You
love
choose
it.
to
Thank
serve
you.
it.
Yeah, I do.
We appreciate you.
And
And so I don't want, I'm not trying to make anybody be defensive. I'm just trying as a taxpayer to understand why you're lumping us in with a town that is way bigger than us, with a way bigger budget, that then slants the average of what we need to pay our people. And I'm all for people making a good wage. I'm in an industry where we pay people for a living. Okay, but at the end of the day, if our town can't afford that and we don't have the revenue coming in, we can't just write checks that we can't cash. And that's what I see this city doing. We're
Well,
writing checks that
I
we
asked a
cannot.
question of the council and you, Ms. Oliveira. This represents 58,000 of a $15 million budget. It sounds like people are getting caught up, you yourself, on what we're paying our salaried employees, me included. Does anyone have any problem with the equity adjustment for our hourly employees? We're all focusing on this one salary survey. There's a bigger need to get our hourly non-exempt employees to where they need to be so we can attract and retain talent. So if we're just talking about salary, I was given a task. I fulfilled the task. So Tom, you have a comment?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, I really want to hear everybody speak before I at least respond to some of the questions about the budget, because I want to get that perspective. I also think that it's worth remembering, while this is certainly the task of approving the annual budget is the responsibility of the council, we're a policy-making body. We're oftentimes referred to as the board of directors for the city, and the city manager is a CEO. For me, what I have learned in almost 3 years is that, we try to provide guidance, strategy, policy with some KPIs and set forth expectations. And we then set the sword down, so to speak, and the city manager picks it up and goes from there. I think that the comparisons are very, very difficult, not just for the reasons that he cited, but if you look at the private sector, there are companies that have 50 employees or 75 employees versus companies that have 1,500, and the CFO makes the same amount of money. And in some cases, the CFO that works for a company that has 50
But what
can
determines
make
that?
more. What determines it oftentimes is market. And what we want talented people. And I think the second component of this isn't just one of equity, making sure that our employees are paid fairly. Is that we have to compete with these cities for employees. The police department, we've had 2 unfilled positions for a long, long time because we can't compete. So I think it's a complex issue. Your points are good ones, because if you look at TML as a whole, there's certainly some really, really big cities in there where, in my example, the CFO would make a lot more money than the other, but it's just not as simple as it's a very difficult task that we gave the city manager. We're trying to make sure we have peer analysis, both when we do fees, which in the past budget times we've asked the city manager, when you're raising fees, when's the last time we raised fees? How does our garbage fees compare to Elgun and compare to Giddings? So we don't just do peer analysis for salaries. We do peer analysis for fees and such. I would be interested. I think I know the answer to this, but it's not part of the material. My guess is that even with these proposed fees, we are probably still very comparable to some of the other cities. I don't want to say that for sure because I haven't done the research, but I know when we did our last fee raise, it hadn't been done in 7 years. And I think in some of the cases, so I think like employees, town has just not kept up maybe with both the fees and with the wages as I think the council would like to see it, or we wouldn't have given the city manager the directive to go back and try to find the money. That's me speaking.
Ms. Olvera, thank you. I think we all enjoyed the detailed email that you sent us all. And one of the points that you had asked is that we do some more digging and investigation. So I took that to heart. And this afternoon, I actually went and found another study. I think there's an association, Robert, I think of city managers, and some 300, 400, I don't know how many towns we got. It was 5 pages worth. And there is no consistent guideline for how city staff, executive staff is paid. And if I look at the city managers, and if you try and look at it as population size, which is hard to have a direct correlation there, I could find similar sized cities where the city manager made $50,000 or $60,000, and on the upside, they were making 275 to 300. So it's up to us, I think, here to apply whatever wisdom and knowledge that we have to determine those salaries. I can't find a guideline, and the KPIs are up to us. As Councilman Etheridge was saying, we've got to set the measurement for it, but it's very difficult to do a comparison of any kind, whether we're doing it to Bastrop or we do it to Elgin or we do it to LaGrange or towns that are half the size of us. And I see them making more money than our people are making. So it's not consistent. I did take to heart what you said and do some more digging there. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yep. And not everybody enjoyed the email, but thank you.
Brandon Dunham. I live at 200 Taylor Street next to the fire department. And can you hear? Okay, I'll lean over a little bit. Oh, yeah. Anyways, Brandon Dunham, live at 200 Taylor Street. Just a couple of comments about the expenses. There's so many things, so many wish lists. I mean, everything from drainage to, I mean, recycling center working properly to salaries getting paid properly. And there's so many different perspectives you can have. You could compare to Bastrop. You could compare to some of these smaller towns and bringing some of these low skilled people in that are able or more skilled because they have experience, but coming in and maybe they don't go all the way to Bastrop because they're not wanting that lifestyle of a bigger suburban city. So there's so many different ways you could compare that and contrast it. Also, just a quick comment on the recycling, just in general, is I do have not a direct correlation, but I do have a client that is a major disposal company in Texas. So take those with a grain of salt, but they constantly refer to it as waste diversion, not as recycling. And the reason why is because they are trying to preserve their landfill. And so that they don't have to go buy another landfill, go through the permitting process. So a lot of it is not like I recycle, I enjoy it. But it isn't necessarily a thing that can be better for the environment. It's not a cost effective thing unless you are trying to manage your waste disposal. And so some of the contracts I don't see it as being profitable for some of these things unless you start talking to the disposal companies, whichever ones they are. And they're going to want to preserve their investment of their landfill and divert that elsewhere and move it elsewhere. And so until you get to that point of being able to negotiate a contract, I don't see a revenue way there unless it is community supported. And it comes down to an idealistic belief. And I mean, that is as odd as it sounds. And I mean, it may be off-putting to some as I grew up here in Smithfield, but I lived in Austin and I came back here. And one of the reasons why I chose Smithfield was because there was a recycling option. And so it is one of those things that can be a draw to a younger demographic whenever there really isn't a lot of other things here for someone like myself with 2 kids in this community. I mean, thankfully the park on the south side of town is nicer, but some of these other parks aren't in that great a condition. And whenever you're talking about revenue generation and bringing in more and more residents, you have to be able to appeal to a younger resident, or else you're going to be in the same position with fixed income. And that is always going to be an issue. Lastly, economic development. I personally, about 10 years ago, had the privilege of speaking with the economic developer in Bastrop and get some insights and helping him actually market Bastrop a little bit. And I want to kind of point out to residents of the city that this isn't, should we spend our tax money here versus going to Bastrop or going to LaGrange? The reason why Bastrop is succeeding is because they have a pie-shaped economic area that they're able to draw in from, all the way from Bastrop to Flatonia to Columbus. They're bringing people past us to Bastrop. That's why it's working. That's why they're able to get in Best Buy. That's why they're able to bring in these places. And the reason why they're able to do it is because they have a staff that knows how to make those arguments, knows how to position the city in a way to showcase that, hey, yes, Smithfield is small, but look at all these people driving by the highway. Look at all these people that are going to Bastrop. If you want cheaper land, if you want more affordable taxes, more expensive electricity, you can come here.
I don't mean to cut you off, but just trying to keep it within reason with everybody, but all your thoughts, everything you have said is very well taken. And I appreciate you sharing it with us. Does anybody have a question for him?
Quickly, I can't let it go. So your thoughts on recycling as a representative of the younger professional demographic that we've got here is and I'm gonna do a sales technique here. Is the $6 a month fee to recycle too much for you, or would it disincent you from recycling? Or how would you feel if we shut down the recycling center?
At that rate, I'm more than willing, and honestly probably use it more because I'm investing into it and feel more obligated to do it rather than just walking down to the curb to throw something away because it's convenient. So it's more of a sense of obligation.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Can I clear, did you ask him $6? What'd you say to him? $6? $6 a month fee. Okay.
What did it come out as?
$6.25 a month, actually,
$6.
75 a year.
It was a sales technique.
There you go.
Thank you.
At item number 4, public hearing on 2023-2024 ad valorem tax rate. Come on down, Jenny.
I'm Jenny Bush, 204th Avenue, Queen of the Hill. I was gonna just pass, but I couldn't resist. What does ad valorem tax rate mean? Just tell me real quick.
Tax rate is the rate that you get charged per $100 evaluation of your property.
Okay, so my property taxes? That's my
Yes.
property taxes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, today we had BCAD show up on the hill and just start taking pictures uninvited. That wasn't cool, but I know. Yeah, BCAD. And anyway, that's off the point. I really just wanted to come up here and tell you that I still don't want to pay $75 a month, a year for recycling. You should take it off the agenda, and you should find something else to save your $50,000 or $60,000 somewhere else, like maybe buy some less expensive fire trucks or something. I'm sorry. You let me, I'll go shopping for you and help you save the money somewhere else.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank
What
you.
if we only charged you $6 a month?
How about if you charged me $5 annually?
Thank you, Ms. Bushy.
Thank you.
Brittany Olvera, 105 Fifth Avenue of the Hill. Why would I want to pass on this subject? It's a lot of fun. So my question is still going to be the same, which is how are we going to come up with the money needed next year? I mean, we're still talking about increasing our expenses, and we're not having any discussion anywhere really about where we're bringing in more money other than increasing fees. So where is our business development part of it? Where are we going to start talking about that to bring in the revenue that the city needs? So I think it's important, just FYI, for I think taxpayers to understand where the city is going to go instead of thinking that it's a ship with no captain. Because sometimes you feel like you're looking at a ship that's just making sure it doesn't sink, but it's got no real direction. And that goes back to KPIs that Tom talked about. We talked
Yeah,
about this a lot.
This is, you are absolutely, this is not a sustainable business model. And that's your point.
That is
And
my
my point I made earlier is we had a workshop, special meeting. One of the items was economic development. When we get to the discussion about how we're going to vote on this, I can show my cards right now. I'm 100% behind supporting the employees and doing this, but I am absolutely 100% expecting that everybody on this dais is going to come together in a meaningful and intellectually honest way in the next 60 or 90 days and come up with a real strategy for economic development. We have a balanced budget, so we're not creating anything that we can't sustain next year. Every year we have to balance it. Now, you're right, we're balancing it by generating revenues from extra trash and fees. And I don't know if it was Jeannie, whoever it was that made the comment that, I'm going to have to pay more fees. Every one of us have to pay everything that we vote on. We're all citizens too. We have to be. So anything we decide to vote on up here, we're voting for ourselves too. So just a point. That's enough said. I think you make great points, and the pounding in of economic development, I think cannot be stated loud enough.
Thank you.
So all citizens have spoken. Does anybody up here have a question or a comment? Okay. The city council will vote on the proposed tax rate and budget on September 11, 2023 council meeting held at 6 p.m. in the council chambers at 317 Main Street, Smithville, Texas. I'm adjourning the public meeting, public hearing. We're going to go into the open meeting. Number 6, discussion and possible action on waiving the late penalty of utility bills with an agreed payment plan. Robert, do you want to elaborate on that?
Jennifer, will you pull the presentation up, please?
Make a comment? Okay, I want to just get a point of order, understand how this works. This is a workshop. So presumably at the end of this meeting, the council is going to give the city manager any direction on changes to what's being proposed in anticipation of presenting this budget to the meeting on Monday. Is that correct?
Well, the special called meeting portion of this is discussion and action on these two items, number 6 and 7. So that's
Correct.
subsequent away
Correct.
from the workshop.
But have we closed out the discussion about the budget?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's important, Mayor, that you poll the council to make sure there's not any directives the council members want to give the city manager, so he's prepared on Monday night with the budget before we go into these other items.
Very good. Do you have anything to add?
Earlier, when we discussed the point of order, I asked if we were finished with discussion on the budget, and we said no. So we're closing that
Okay.
out and we're not discussing the budget again?
Sorry, I guess I got out of order there. Okay, so do we have other things with the budget that
I'm certainly not,
we can go back and
I'm not finished with my thoughts, so you
Okay,
can go
well-
back and open.
we'll go back into the public hearing then.
We can deal
Oh.
with the action items.
Okay, so we're back into the workshop discussion on the budget.
Already made my opening statement. I'm interested in hearing more from my colleagues.
Janice?
I want to thank everybody that came up and for the letters that I received this week. And I apologize to Michelle. I did not get back with you, but I think that's an excellent idea about the park and the Riverbend Park. I do think we're charging, not enough. And I think we can really get some excitement down at Riverbend Park. It's a beautiful space. I mean, $20 is a fantastic price. And if we bring that price up a little bit, we'll be able to generate some revenue. So thank you for that. You were challenged, and who said it? Carol said it best. We're limited government, and let the citizens come up with the ideas. I think that's brilliant. Brittany, thank you for your in-depth paperwork that you sent me. And I really believe in KRIs. We are key readiness indicators, KPIs, key performance indicators. I believe in SMART objectives where we set the 2, 3, 4, whatever goals it's going to be when we do our implementation plan. And it doesn't have to be where we're doing that when we do the comp plan. It can be done like right now, where we have specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based objectives. And so I think going forward, we really need to look at this recycle center. And I know Jimmy and Tyrone did look at it, but I do think we need some more specificity on what the heck we're going to do with this recycle center, because we do have a population that they want to recycle. And so one of the things I'm not happy with $75. I think that should be reduced, actually. I'm not sure what that number is. I need to think it through. I need some more detail. As far as the cost of living, no, let me back up. As far as the prevailing wage rate right now, I know that most federal contracts that are let, and or I can give you an example, when you get a federal grant and for example, at the workforce, the one we just received from EDA, the folks that actually get trained have to earn at least $18 an hour, which is called the prevailing wage. And it's actually the living wage is 19 an hour. And if anybody goes to Workforce Solutions in the state of Texas, they actually go by the living wage, which is $19 an hour. So I agree with my colleague Tom. And as far as the laborers, the people that are actually working for the city of Smithville, I was here in 2020. I remember in 2021, we did do a slight increase, but I think we need to take our folks up to that $18 prevailing wage, which really isn't even at the living wage amount. So first thing is recycle. I think we need to study that a little bit further, especially if we're losing $60,000 or whatever it is a year. Secondly, I want to also look at the COLA and if there's some ways possibly, I know we have salaried employees, and maybe take another look at the COLA and maybe not an 8%, maybe reduce it to like a 5%. I mean, just see what that's going to look like money wise. So those are my comments. Thank you.
You know, I appreciate everybody's comments, everything that y'all said. We are listening to you. I do believe that the $18 an hour for the hourly wage people needs to happen. That is something that we do have to do. I looked back at the last meeting that we did, and I just went back and how we responded to Robert and how we told him what we wanted. I understand the deal with the COLAs, but I mean, we told him to go find the money and to get everybody where they needed to be. So I am comfortable with where the budget is. As for the recycle center, I'll go ahead and I'll research all of the recycle centers in the area. I'll get with Edward, and he and I will do some stuff. I do think we need to charge at least $50 per family, however we need to do it. I think it can't be less than that. If it is, then we need to just go ahead and shut the recycle center down. Now that if y'all, that's what you want, I'm all for that. But we just heard from the citizens that there's a breadth of people that want it. And yes, Jenny Bush, I did hear you that you don't want to pay more than $5, period. I did hear that, but that's just not economically what we can do. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, let me about the recycling center. Plan on shutting it down. Where's everybody gonna go?
In the garbage can, and that's what we're trying not to do. But if we can't come up with something, and we have till the end of the year, folks, we're going to start implementing this in a phase thing of, putting out the notices so everybody knows at the first of the year they're going to have to pay. But we have to make a decision on how much it's going to be right now. Could that change next year? Yes, it could. It depends on how many people actually use it. If you have less than 100 people using it, we're paying, we're not still not covering our expenses. It's still just not happening. And we need to do something to make it not a drain. I understand. I've heard this from a lot of people. Some things we do it because it is a emotional thing for the community, and that's what they want to do, and we have to do it. But sometimes you just have to go back and look at it.
I think Jimmy raised some great issues, but I want to remind everybody, there's a lot of departments in the city that lose money. They take money from the utility transfer. The library loses money. The rec center loses money. All of these, that's why we have transfers between utility. You have to look at the city as a business that has two divisions. One spends money for the most part and the other makes money, but we're all part of the same family. I mean, it's like having a one earning family where one spouse stays at home and one works. One spends the money and the other makes the money, but it's both of their money. That's the way you have to look at the city. We have to decide, do we value the rec center? I mean, do we value the recycle center? And if we do, we have to know, do we value it enough to subsidize it? My argument has been that that there is a better solution. It's probably a regional solution in my mind, not, if we're too small. I think we should get our, Bastrop County judges or commissioners, and we should figure out how to be part of a regional solution. So to Council Member Washington's point, I don't think anybody wants to eliminate it. Another possibility is when our waste management contract comes up, we can explore that. There's a lot of obvious challenges there, but it is a possibility. But it is our marketing window, and it is an eyesore, and it loses money. And we have a brand new renovated Brookshire's, and everything time people come into town, or a lot of them, they go right past that. And there's a better solution to that. We won't solve it tonight, but I think over the next year to two, there will be. Yeah.
May I add a comment, please? A suggestion, 75, drop that to 50. Drop the the non-resident from 150 to 100 and increase the membership, because now it's cheaper. More people are bound to recycle. Yes. Okay, so that's what we'll do, and we
Yeah.
can make it a
I would like
wash.
to see I would like to see the numbers, and because in December, when we start signing people up,
Yeah.
we've got a whole month there. That'll give us the numbers, and I'm all good with the 50 and 100. Yeah, and I think you are too, aren't you? Yes, he is. Well, we're all good with that.
So this is why it's important, because Monday, when you adopt the fee schedule, I'm going to make it where it is 50 and 100 versus 75 and 150. And the revenue expectations are still 7,500. We just need more members to bring that up there. Another comment, yeah, I'd like to make regarding the COLA, Councilmember Bruno. I recommended 5% the first workshop. Y'all told me to go back and make it 8. So now I'm going back to make it 5. Let's figure out what you want. Yes, that's what happened.
Can I be recognized? Yeah, I think we just need to have some order about who's going to talk. For me, I do think that we charge the city manager, as I remember, we charge the city manager with creating equitable comparable compensation to our peer group. It wasn't tied to a percentage. It was tied to going out and looking at what he recommended would get everybody to the point where we were equitable. Our hourlies, the number was $18, but obviously on the exempt employees, it's not an hourly number. You have to look at the data. Inarguably, the data is not perfect. When you look at the peer group analysis, as several, very capable people have pointed out, it's not perfect. But I think the city manager came and gave us exactly what we told him. Don't get focused on the 5 and 8. We told him to come and make a recommendation to get everybody across the board where we wanted him to be. Now, we can debate whether that's what we want him to do now that we've seen the numbers, but I think he's done exactly what we told him to do.
No, that's what we had said. We had said, and so it turned out when you did the numbers, it was 8%. Okay. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
Yes, please. I'm not opposed to the out of town, the non-resident fee staying at the 150, because my understanding is that's part of is causing the problem. We have out of towners abusing it. I'm
Where do we go?
I think we go with the 50 and 100. Let's start with that this year. We'll see how they act. The out of towners may say, I'm not going to spend any money on y'all.
many out of
They'll
towners do
find a
we have
field
here?
to dump their cardboard. That's,
Other side of the road, and then Tyrone got to pick it up anyway.
Okay.
Don't do that.
I'll
Okay.
bring my thoughts back then to the compensation side of this. I'm fully in support of bringing the hourly employees up, even with the 16.5% required to do that. I'm there. The COLA, whether it's a 5% or an 8%, there are certain positions that are not equitable within your staff right now, and I don't want to eliminate that for those people. So I don't know how we can adjust or give you direction as an action item to come back with addressing those positions that need to be brought up to par. The other thing that I still want us to talk about is we haven't addressed the revenue side yet. And if we're going to address that, are we going to do that tonight? Are we going to ask Robert to come back with, I mean, I'm fine with carving out, and I'm going to throw a number, $150,000 to create a standalone economic development department that has a position in it. As I keep coming back to Lori Vincent's speech, we need someone who eats, breathes, lives economic development and increasing that sales tax revenue, the revenue side of this equation, with a targeted number, whether it's 15% and we're going to achieve it over a 5-year period. We have to have a number to shoot for.
Yep,
And
sure.
when we look at, and there are a lot of things happening that I understand can't be discussed in public. There are businesses that want to come to town, and we may turn around the sales tax revenue issue right now. Maybe it is an anomaly, but I want to see us address the revenue side of this, and I would like to hear the colleagues' responses to that.
I understand that. I do. I'd still, as I have said, probably ad nauseum to all of y'all, I want to wait until Lori Vincent's final meeting with the council in November, when she comes and she gives us what she believes is the direction economic development is supposed to go. She has been leading up to this. If you go to those huddles that she's had, the hot huddles that have been done over the last year, they are really pinpointed about economic development. She has a plan. She is really good at what she does. I want to see that. And then I think we go forward from there. That's right. We may have to wait a little bit to fund it, but we still need to hear what she has to say.
Now, are we going to have to increase fees and rates again next year? That's the point why I want to do it now instead of waiting.
She may have a plan that already has people pointed this way that we can reach out to, and we can do it with the people that we have, because we have Jill in economic development. We're going to get a community coordinator that can also help her with that. So why don't we let that go and let it see how it will play out?
Let me make a comment. I mean, having been party to some of these discussions, we did have a special meeting. There was quite a bit of discussion about economic development. We did retire into executive session and talk specifically about some things we can't discuss here, but there was consensus in the public special meeting that we needed to have, and correct me if I'm misspeaking. I know we've had these conversations with city manager about coming back to the council with a plan and a strategy that was more focused, that had objective KPIs tied to it, and that the council, that would be the appropriate time for the council to debate what I think everybody on this dais agrees needs to happen and would support happening, is doing economic development differently than it's being done today. But it's the city manager. I think we're setting the policy that we want to focus on economic development to increase revenues because of where we are with our budget. We want him to come back with a strategy for how to narrowly focus on that, the KPIs that would be associated, a staffing plan for that, and a funding mechanism for that. So that's what I thought we at least loosely charged the city manager with at the special meeting, is to do that. Now, whether that happens in November, which, it may make a lot of sense to just have the benefit of that, but whatever happens, Councilmember Jameson, as I said earlier, my support of this is really, really providing, with some trust that everybody up here and the city manager is going to make an intellectually honest attempt to come back before the end of the year with a meaningful plan for how we do economic development differently. So I don't know if that meets your expectations. I hate to see us try to link Monday's meeting to something that we need more research on, but I think we could certainly link it to more formally directing the city manager to come back with a plan on a date certain, with certain things in that plan. I think that would be totally appropriate, because I think we've all talked about that. I think we're all in agreement that that's what should happen.
Mayor. Okay, so, we have this $3 million series 2023 tax notes. And in the general area, let me ask this question. So should we do some sort of a pilot program where you come back and you give us an implementation plan for economic development?
Again, I'm sorry. Lori Vince is coming back in November.
Yes,
Part of the comprehensive plan, a major activity of the comprehensive plan is developing that strategy. What
Yes.
is your inventory? What's your land use? What's your historic? All of this goes into forming what economic development should be for us.
correct.
So for me to present something now before we have those meetings is premature.
No,
Because
no,
I
no.
also think, let me finish. I also think that people don't recognize what has been done with economic development. I have 26 development projects that we're supporting right now. The seeds have been planted 2 years ago and you're about to see them sprout. I just can't go into what that is, with the exception of the 69-acre industrial triangle. I just got the plans for their complete infrastructure layout, streets, sidewalks, pads. That's coming.
Okay,
And with that is coming a manufacturing facility. So things are going to happen, but I think I've done a bad job communicating as to what those development projects are.
Okay,
And how what we've done has helped us.
no, that's fantastic.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
not really what I'm saying.
My bad.
Okay, so what I'm saying is I know we're working the comprehensive plan. I get that. So normally what you do, and you've done this, but I think we can get into a little bit more detail. When we did the comp plan in 2012, and if you go back and you read that comp plan, all I'm saying right now is maybe we relook at that because that's really what we had. We've met a lot of those goals already.
95%.
Not exactly. And actually about a year ago, and I have this, I sent Tom, I want to say Tom and whoever else was on the dais at the time, an implementation plan for each one of those KRIs that we were going to do. So maybe what we do is do some sort of a presentation because we have met 90 to 95% of those particular goals that we set from 2012. Okay, I know that's 11 years ago, but we are going to do a comprehensive plan. So all I'm saying is we might be able to just get an overview brief, maybe at a special workshop to go, look, everybody, look at what we've done in the last 11 years. Okay, as far as economic development goes and how it tied back into the comp plan. I think that's a good thing because as we get ready to do the new comp plan, everyone then will be familiar with what a comprehensive plan entails. So with Lori Vincent coming back in November, I guess I'm just thinking maybe we just need another workshop to educate everybody on how that works.
And I had intended to present that with Lori Vincent. Jill and I were going to get up and give a,
So that is in November.
yes,
Okay.
here's where we are. Here's where we think
That's
we're going.
As I stand here today or sit here today, I'm not prepared to wait 12 to 18 months for a comprehensive plan before we do economic development differently than we've been doing it. I will also say that Pam Mundo, was that Pam? It was probably 4 years ago. I sat in on a Zoom call where she presented a plan. And I don't remember, it was a strategic sustainability plan or something, economic development. I would encourage everybody to go pull that report up and look at the 5 goals that they identified and tell me how many of those directly generated revenue into the bottom line to offset these expenses. I'm not saying that those goals weren't valuable, but I'm saying you show me how achieving those 5 related to dollars. And if the city manager has these big things that are getting ready to blow up, then he needs to call an executive session and inform all this council of all these deals that are sitting out there ready to go.
Just told you what one of them was.
Well, there's more of them. You imply there's a lot more than that. I just can't tell you right now. The manufacturer, we've all known about that for, if you're talking about 95, we've known about that for a long time. We don't know the company, but it's going to take a lot more than just that one deal.
Well, and also it's all situational. Where are we? What's going on? What's
That's
the market?
Point though. That's
Yeah,
exactly the
it is.
point, is that's what a strategy will
Yeah,
tell
and
us.
what does economic development require? Houses. When are developers going to start building houses? Houses will bring jobs and people. So there's a bigger strategy we need to look at, which Lori Vincent is going to give us, and we can build upon that.
Well, I'm not waiting for 18 months
I
for
didn't
Lori
say you have to
Vincent
wait 18
to
months. We're
tell
going to
us.
talk
No,
about
it's
November.
not. The comprehensive plan, that's just Lori Vincent starting a plan that we're going to spend $300,000 over the next 12 months. And I'm not prepared to do that. And I don't know my colleagues are prepared, but I'm not prepared to wait through the end of 2024 before we know what our strategy is.
We really don't have to wait. I mean, we have all these plans. We've been doing these plans since 2002. I've got them all. I got all of them in notebook. Okay, we've been doing them. Some of them have brought in revenue. I mean, I think about one of the goals was a workforce training center. It brought in almost $4.8 million. Okay, now is that direct revenue? Not right away, but when you're training over 200 people that are going to give back working jobs in the community, that is indirectly some sort of revenue. I haven't quite figured those numbers out yet, what the return on investment is, but I'm going to, okay, because we're training a workforce. We're training a workforce, okay, and I think that's important. But no, I want to say that we can start now. Lori's going to finish. She's been here for the last 12 months. We've been doing housing huddles. We've been doing every type of huddle that you can imagine for the last 18 months on Tuesday nights. Okay, and 4 people show or 6 people show. And so all of a sudden now we're all just fired up about showing up and making a comp plan. I'm just saying we
Back to
can
our
start
agenda.
this now. We can do this
Yes.
now. It doesn't have to wait
We all
for, like
agree
you're
on
saying, a
economic
year.
development. I agree.
Not waiting a year, Tom.
But Councilmember
any-
Jameson was asking about putting $150,000. So it is appropriate to discuss that
Okay.
request in the budget as it pertains to economic development. So that's how we kind of got sidetracked, but.
Okay, so we're back on budget. What points are we giving?
I'm not sure because
Okay.
that this is budget. And my opening remarks were, I want to support what we're doing to bring our hourly employees up to speed. I want the revenue side of this addressed because I'm not willing to come back if I were to be here next year in the budget cycle and say to the people, we're going to raise your fees again. We have to have a very strategic plan on what this means. And that's why I'm willing to go with $1 million increase, but I want part of that dedicated to specifically generating revenue. I do not want to wait on the comprehensive plan. I've been waiting on that for a long time. I'm sorry. The waiting, I just keep hearing waiting and waiting on Lori Vincent in November, and Lori Vincent's going to have a plan, and Lori Vincent's going to ask us to spend money, and we don't have that money budgeted unless y'all are telling me we do.
Right now, we have asked him to come bring forth a budget. So you're asking him to change, come back to us on the day that we're going to vote on the budget with a whole big change, because if you tell him to find another 150,000, then he's going to have to reallocate probably half of the budget that he's got on paper right now. I'm saying we have a budget, we have our departments paid, we know what we're doing. In November, we will have Lori Vincent here to tell us where we're going to go. There may be ways that he can manipulate budget at that time to get us where we want to go. There may be, all sorts of stuff. She also may come to us with things that say, these are people that you can reach out to that want to come to your town. That's part of what she's doing, is investigating things like that. She is bringing things like that forward. She said at that last meeting, y'all have so much potential. You have the workforce, you have the things that investors are looking to see. When I go to these other towns and I talk, I tell them about your town. If you have to listen to what she says. She did say that she wanted somebody for this town that got up every morning and said, I live and breathe this, I go to bed, I do all that. But I do think if you tell him to come back, we run the risk of not being able to get our budget done on time.
Definition of on time.
Monday. And here's why. You have a tax note tied to your tax rate. You've asked Standard & Poor's to go back and do another bond rating for us. On Monday morning at 11 o'clock, that note will be sold, quote unquote. If you do not pass the budget Monday night or adopt the ordinance to take the tax rate, you will lose status with Standard & Poor's. We will have to pay $15,000 because that's what it costs to have a Standard & Poor's rating. The tax rate won't be right. It'll be a month and a half after public notices to revise the tax rate as to what we're proposing to whatever it's going to be. Not passing this on Monday night will send us in a spiral for future bond ratings, for our getting the ability to adopt a tax rate by September 30th, which is by law, what's required. but you have to have notices. If you change that tax rate, you got to go back and notify folks, which I don't think the window, Jennifer, will allow us to do that at this point.
Separate issues though. We can pass the tax rates, but and we have the taxes and the revenue is allocated right now for us to have a balanced budget of an increase of $1 million. Coming back and reallocating a portion of that, be it from the COLA adjustment or wherever, is an adjustment to the budget itself. It doesn't mean we can't pass the tax notes, the tax issues. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think so.
I mean, can I be recognized? I mean, we can approve whatever budget we want. I mean, we don't have to approve the whole 8%. If we have to approve the budget Monday night, which I understand the logic behind that, we don't necessarily have to approve it in its current form. I mean, we could approve it by holding back some money if that's what the council decided. I do think it's important that we, that we approve the budget Monday night if we can. And I expect that we will, in some form. I just want to see, I said it several times, my support of this is conditioned upon a real commitment to go through the process. And I'm not presupposing what that is, but it sure doesn't, I don't think Lori Vincent in November is going to give us an economic development plan. Robert alluded to all the things that a comprehensive plan generates that drives economic development, land use, zoning, all these things. That is not going to happen in November. Okay. That's the full comprehensive planning process. I don't think we ought to wait for that. I think we ought to, more formally ask the city manager to come back to the council at some point in the not too distant future with a strategy that he comes up with based on what that has a more narrow focus than just a bunch of grants and the way we've done it in the past. It's more narrowly focused on some traditional KPIs for economic development that make the pie bigger. And along with that strategy, he would include a staffing plan of his recommendation and a funding mechanism, of which might be take some money out of this budget. It might be, to your point, if we charge the manager with establishing a different way to do economic development and have a plan and tell him to fund it, he'll come back just like he did before and give us a recommendation for how to fund it.
You can repeat that so it becomes an action item.
Is what it is. If everybody supports it, then it automatically becomes an action item. If everybody wants it, we could decide it on Monday.
Just the way you worded it.
I mean, we've talked about this before. It's really simple. It's requesting the city manager to go back and present the council at some point, call it then before the end of the year, with the framework of a strategy for economic development with some traditional KPIs for economic development, along with a staffing plan and a funding mechanism.
Thank you, Councilman Etheridge. I just spent the weekend at the casino and I wasn't very successful in a craps game called Betting on the Come. I'm sorry. I don't want, this is an assurance and I appreciate that. I have every intention of passing the tax notes as they stand. And honestly, I want to pass the budget. I just don't want to be rushed into this decision because again, and I won't say it anymore, I don't want to come back to the citizens and be increasing fees and rates. I want us to have the revenue generation and I don't want to bet on the come on that. I want us to have a strategic plan that does it.
Us not meeting revenue projections, there's no way you're not pre-committing to raising rates. Unless we come up short at some point during the year on the revenue assumptions, we won't have a shortfall. We have a balanced budget. Now, we may not be able to give anybody any increases, and maybe we don't even foresee considering that next year, but we're not committing, as I see it today, to raising anything next year. That'll be a totally different discussion.
Fees. I don't mean, I'm talking, what we've had to do is very creative this year and we've come back and creatively increased the revenue. We found the revenue to take care of the stuff that we established as the action items, but we did it through looking at distribution fees and increasing garbage and water rates and some other things. And I don't want us to have to do that again. I'm not talking about
to fund like the economic development stuff.
Well,
Our
I'm
new
saying that
thing.
the economic development would come out of this budget that we've already created that has $1 million increase. We're going to have to reallocate something. And I think Councilwoman Bruno is about to speak to that.
I want to ask Robert, okay, so that's what I was going to ask earlier. So you got this $300 million tax note and down in the general did I say 300 million? Oh, let's go, 300 million, $3 million. Okay, so under the general, when we have this next discussion and we've asked Robert, let's go back, let's see what this strategic focus is. What's this implementation going to look like strategically? Could funding at that point in time, if it's required, be moved off of one of those lines after we approve the $3 million tax note? In other words, we come back and say, oh, well, we might not want playground equipment. We'd rather take that funding and put it into.
You couldn't do it for personnel. It has to be for capital equipment, infrastructure upgrades, or
Got it.
citywide city-owned facilities.
So that means you'd have to go back to the well to find something else. Okay.
And we not do it out of the COLA allocation at 8% and make the COLA smaller and make that a two-step process.
Again, the COLA represents 58,000. The big bang we're getting is to bring the PD up to where they need to be. You can make COLA whatever you want, but you're asking to increase the staffing that I'm not sure we need at the moment to increase. I agree we need a strategy. I'll go back and work on that strategy. But it is a balanced budget.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the balance part of it. I'm questioning.
The agenda, it is the 2023-2024 fiscal year budget, and that is where we are.
Right, and I'm discussing an allocation of the spending increase for this budget. I mean, I'm on the agenda topic.
Right.
Okay,
What he's talking about.
I think we've got an action item out of Councilman Etheridge here. Not an action item, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Action tonight, right?
It's not.
Yeah.
on
You
here.
No,
give
this
me
is not.
guidance to come back with.
We're giving guidance to the city manager, so I think we could certainly give that guidance, but we're not voting on anything as I
By the end of
understand
the
it.
year to come back and talk about the KPIs and economic development and holding balance. Talking about coming back for that. But as of today, what we're here for is the budget.
Tie something to it, we can tie it to it in the vote on Monday night. That's the time to do it. Now we have action that could be associated with the budget. If we decided to link approval of the budget to some other action associated with it, we could take that vote on Monday night.
You good with that? So are we good with the budget? Okie dokie. So back to closing the public meeting and then going into the open meeting. Where am I? Okay. We're going into the open meeting, discussion and possible action on waiving the late penalty of utility bills with agreed payment plan.
I guess that's me.
You're usually up here. This is throwing me off. So, all right, come on.
Okay, council, mayor and citizens, there was discussion about eliminating the 10% late fee on those folks who are late. Councilmember Etheridge, you want to expand upon that before I go into my presentation, or do you want?
On it, in what way?
As to why?
Well,
why-
my point was at the last meeting is if someone can't pay their bill, they can't pay the 10% fee. I mean, it can't say it any more simple than that. Now, so the proposal was to agree to make it a policy that we waive the penalty provided, and this is an important provision, provided that they come to the city before the due date and they enter into a repayment plan and they stick to it. That was all it was
Okay.
that.
All right, next slide. You know me and benchmarking, so I'm going to benchmark. You've seen this slide before. Our current rates, as far as our September fuel cost rate is still being calculated. I should have that by Friday. Given historical trends, it's probably going to stay flat, maybe go up a half a cent to a cent. I don't have that data yet, but using the same data with which we benchmarked before, I wanted to ask these municipalities, LaGrange, Bastrop, Latonia, and Elgin, hey, do you guys charge a 10% penalty on late accounts? Yes. And in every case, it's on the entire balance. Number one. Second thing I wanted to ask, do you guys allow a payment plan? The only ones that do that right now are Smithville and Flatonia. She kind of said, well, it depends on the person, but that's Flatonia. Yeah. The third thing I wanted to take a look at is, do you do cutoffs and when? Without exception, each municipality cuts off 10 days after the past due date. We allow 30 and have allowed 60 and have allowed 90. So we're an anomaly in that case whereby we give 30 days before a cutoff. Okay. So at the bottom, you'll see kind of a summary. 10% late fee on the total bill is standard, at least with the population, the municipal population that I benchmarked. They cut off 10 days after the due date. Payment plans are atypical, and we do these plans with folks, but what we found is they're the same people, unfortunately. What I would like to recommend is that I understand the timing of the bill. Would like to maybe extend the due date to the 15th of the month, because people get paid 15th and 30th. The 10th was always kind of aggressive in my mind. So that's one thing I'd like for you to consider. Next slide. So let's take a look at our delinquent accounts. I put this together. This is as of August 31st. We have 2,179 utility accounts. Currently 15.9% of those accounts are delinquent. If you take a look at the chart up there in the green, that number of accounts, 211, changes daily as people pay their bill. Okay. So right now, the people who are 0 to 30 of the 211 accounts, that represents $814,000. We do have approximately $151,000 in uncollected revenue, and this is the 30 days to 120 day fee. Hit anybody in the eye? Come on now. I think there's some kind of vortex aura that makes stuff not work in here. Oh, there we go.
Robert, does that uncollectible 150, that include late fees?
So, no, that's just the bill, right? Well, okay, hold on. Let me back up.
Yeah, so if it's over 30 days, then in our current policy, they have a fee.
Correct.
So it includes the 10% fee.
And we're going to talk about it. I neglected to say that if you look at our revenue of what late fees bring in, the year to date is 150,000. So it's not insignificant. Now, I would rather have the money for the account being paid for the benefit of the city and for the benefit of the individual. If you're 30, 60, 90, you're never going to catch up and you're going to end up in the collections or charge off area. Okay. So we did this analysis. There's some things that have been unwritten rule that aren't in our ordinance that we just do. And one of those is that we do not charge 65 and older a late penalty. It's not in our ordinance, but we don't do it. I need to fix that. We need to codify or document that. We currently have 15 customers on a payment plan. And most of these are in the 60, 90, 120. Next slide. Oh, by the way, yeah, 912,000 sent off to collections and charge offs. That's $1 million, folks. So recommendations, allow customers going forward, allow customers to pass due accounts the opportunity to resolve delinquent balance. Let's give them till December 31st. Now we did this in January to fix it by June, but here's where we are. I want to implement the 30-day past due cutoff timeline if you want to continue that, but our ordinance as it's written today states that an account who is delinquent can be cut off within 5 days. And we do it in 30. Again, this is something that just was unwritten. I came into this role. There were people with 120 days past due. We tried to ratchet that back. We got it down to 45 or 30, then COVID hit. So we're back up now in 60, 90, trying to ratchet that down again. However, with 57 days of over 100-degree weather, we have chosen not to cut people off. And the same is true during the winter if it's less than 30 degrees or 32. But know this, the Public Utilities Commission has no authority for municipally owned utilities. So we don't fall under the PUC regulations that it's against the law to cut someone off during the summer or during the winter. Doesn't apply to us because we are a municipally owned utility. Having said that, yes, it is a perk that we don't do that. I don't want anybody to suffer because it's 107 degrees outside, but this is not codified in our ordinance at this point. So something we need to address going forward. Next chart. Oh, okay. I'm at the end of the road. So comments, questions? No. What is that? Oh, yeah.
Again, Pace Davis, 707 Bishop. So this is an issue that I feel passionate about. I appreciate Robert suggesting the 15th of the month. I want to make a comment about payment plans. There are de jure payment plans and there are de facto payment plans. And as far as my experience in this world, everyone will do a payment plan. Your mortgage lender, your car lender, everyone will do one. So I imagine that even these cities don't officially do it. If you call them and offer them 80% of their money, they will take it. And they will likely give you something in return. All right, well, that's, and secondly, the cutoff thing, 10-day cutoff thing is if they schedule someone to cut you off, which again, de facto and de jure. A lot of places don't get someone on the schedule to cut you off until 10, 20, 30 days later, depending on staffing and other concerns. So I think I want to point that out, but that's not really what I want to suggest. What I would like to suggest here is I understand the concern about the same chronic people making late payments. I also understand that late payments or late fees are a revenue source for the city. But you're asking for another $185,000 in expected income revenue from electrical fees next year. So I would like you to offset some of that increase and test and pilot test a late fee schedule. Now here's the idea, right? Robert, your concern is the same people. If it's the same people and they're always late, they're always going to be late, right? They can't get right. But the issue with a 15th of the month payment and having a late fee is, even if you're one of our employees making the new $18 an hour and your bill goes up by $200, you got to work 13, 14 hours after taxes to get that $200. And if you learn on the 5th that you owe $200 more, you don't have $200, right? What are you going to do? The only thing you can do is add hours to your schedule wherever you are. Okay. So my recommendation to council and Robert would be that you make a rule, and I sent this to Councilmember Etheridge and Jameson, put a rule in place. You get 1, maybe 2 passes a year. And if you pay half your bill by the 15th and you commit and deliver on the remainder of the bill by the 1st of the next month, you get a pass on your late fee. Now, why does that work? It's because if someone doesn't have the money and they can't get it, they can't get it for you by the 15th. They've already worked the hours, the paycheck's coming in. But if they've got the ability to earn money, they can go get you the rest of the money they owe you. So they commit to paying you, they pay you your half because their bill is not going to go over double, right? So they should expect 200 or 300. So they'll have that money, right? And then they'll work the extra hours they need to get you your money by the 1st of the next month. They make right, you give them 1, maybe 2 times a year. And then you have late fees. But again, that takes care of all the people who are doing their best to pay their bill and aren't always late.
Nadine, you're going to have to come to the mic, please. Introduce yourself.
I'm Nadine Harris. I work in the utility department. We have tried payment plans about 2 years ago. Jill was able to get a grant where we were able to go in and get some customers. They got $750 each. They then came in and they set up a payment plan, signed the payment plan, and were not able to fulfill those commitments in that payment plan. So we do want to work with customers, but in the past, we've just found a long-term payment plan doesn't work very well at all. We also did waive those penalties. Anybody that signed up for that payment plan did not have to incur any penalties on that amount. It's hard for a payment plan with our system. I do. Well, because a lot of times now with the mail service, the mail has to go to the post office. It then has to go to Austin, get processed in Austin, and then turn around and come back to Smithville. So it's not like we take them over there and they can send them right out. There's a process. And I think adding 5 extra days would give customers a little extra time, because they do say, well, you don't give me enough time to pay my bill. I only got it on the 8th and it's got to be due by the 10th. So I do think extending it to the 15th would be beneficial for customers. Anything else?
Your information. Do you have any other questions? Paisley?
No, that's my recommendation. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. I think I'm going to entertain a motion to move the payment to the 15th. Is that a correct action? No.
You
Not doing
have an
anything.
action, you have to go back to item number 6 on the agenda.
That's where we are, aren't we? Penalty of unibid? Yes, we're on number 6.
Discussion and action on waiving the.
Right, so
the
I'm asking if anybody wants a motion. Are we just going to table it or?
Where's the agenda?
Yes. Do you want to, are we tabling it or just possible action or what are we going to do, group?
If we don't take action, it dies.
Okay, so back to the original question. Are we going to take action, take a motion?
Let me ask a question. Is the city manager making the recommendation to extend it to the 15th?
I am.
Okay, so I move, Mayor, that instead of waiving the penalty for utility bills, that we change the due date from the 10th to the 15th.
I'll second.
Y'all on board?
Yeah, effective.
A motion has been made and seconded. Did you, I'm sorry. Wait,
Here,
oh,
let
wait.
me add to that motion because they want to know effective when. When do you want it effective, Robert? Cynthia, what gives you enough time to be able to do this? What would be good?
I would say at least a month. We have to reprogram and get with STW.
What if I said October 1st?
No,
No, by November.
probably November.
November 1st?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
November.
fine. So Jennifer, I'll amend to just add that in effective November 1st.
Okay, so motion been made and second. I know. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Do you have everything you need? Very good. Number 7, discussion and possible action on a variable base rate distribution fee. Robert?
Go back 2 slides, 3 slides, Jennifer, please. Right there. Okay. During my benchmarking exercise, I did verify, we talked about this during the electric rate discussion. The majority of municipalities in our area that utilize LCRA use a variable rate model. I think the action was to talk about during the summertime, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Etheridge, that you wanted to do something different in the summer months. Because we have a variable rate fee now.
Well, I think the point was certainly in light of what we're considering in the budget, which is further increase to the distribution fee. I think finding a way to smooth out or to alleviate I'll call it the summer shock, or there's a handful of months where the bills are usually high because of seasonality. Whether it is a smoothing out of the transfer fee, the distribution fee, or whether it's a flat variable rate, looking for ways to provide citizens some relief during those months. Former council member Mike Kahanick actually was the one that suggested that to me, is he said, he had maybe talked to you in the past too about possibly looking at smoothing out the how you charge the distribution fee to make it a smaller amount during the months when it was, likely that people are going to use more electricity, and then increasing the amount to where you end up at the same place at the end of the year.
Etheridge, so you're suggesting that we do a smoothing out
Like a set rate?
as opposed, so the question to the citizens would be, when we hit the months that have lower utility costs assigned with it, they're going to have to pay more then, correct? So we're just averaging out.
Managing to an absolute dollar amount per month to
Yeah.
provide relief, because people don't write us a check for the distribution fee. They write us it for 5.5 cents or the 5 cents. They write for whatever their bill is. So we're just, what I had hoped to do was to provide a motion that would, direct the city manager to come back to the city council with a tangible solution that provided for a variable rate to provide relief during those high use months. I don't know what the plan is today. I'm just saying a variable. There's lots of ways to do the variable. You could do a straight line where you did an estimate. I remember years ago when I was on PEC, you had the option of electing a set payment every month. You paid the same amount for your electricity every single month, and then you trued it up at the end of the year. And they based it on some estimated usage, and everybody paid the exact same amount. I paid $227 a month. And at the end of the year, sometimes I got $100 back, and sometimes I had to pay a little bit more. So that's that's one way of doing it variable. The other is to just cut out the distribution fee and make it variable.
Okay, so the distribution fee is static. 55, the proposed fee is 55.5 cents per kilowatt hour. The variable rate comes in with all the other stuff: generation, transmission, service fees, admin. That's what you could stabilize if you wanted to as a council, given our history of data that shows that the cost per kilowatt in Smithville is 12 to 13 cents. So you can make it a flat rate, but those months where it's cooler, you're going to pay a higher rate during that, like February, March. And if that's acceptable?
And that's exactly the point here is, does it make sense to provide some relief during those handful of months where it's exceptionally high in exchange for the trade-off being in those months where you would historically have it lower, you're going to pay a little bit more.
But put it this way, the bill is going to be the bill. When we get the bill for purchased power, it's not going to take that into account. This is what you use. This is what you got to pay. So we're going to have to absorb that in some manner in June and July. How that's done from a billing perspective, have you got any idea how we could do that?
Well, let's face it. When you come to the council and you provide a budget, you do a 1/12 of revenue every single month. So it's not like you don't already inherently manage your cash flow. You do. So I don't think that's the issue. The issue is really, for me, I'm not really prepared tonight to tell you what the solution is. I can tell you the problem for citizens, and it's going to be compounded if we increase this, is during those months when usage is high, they're going to pay a big amount they're going to write a big check. And how do we provide some relief? And one of the options is to look at a variable or a smoothing out, and that can be done a handful of ways, I would just say. And you also have to take into account how hard it's going to be for the city to administer. You would have to maybe retool your systems. And so I'm not suggesting I know the answer. I know what the problem is. And I would say, can we at least look and see if there's a solution?
That is a really good idea on the variable part of it, but I think we have to approve the distribution fee rate right now, because I think that's tied into our budget and everything we need to do. So I'm all for that. Do you need a motion? I would like to make a motion that we approve the variable base rate distribution fee, which is 0.5. Is that what it is? 0.055. Yes.
Okay,
Well, that's the total. Excuse me. 0.05 is what we're approving.
Well, actually, point of order, the fee schedule will be adopted on Monday. This was a discussion about how we can smooth out the cost to the citizens. Distribution is kind of, it's wordy in that you can't have a variable distribution rate. It's a set fee we're charging.
Okay.
The variability comes in to Councilmember Etheridge is how can we smooth it out for the citizens? So this says it's a future action is what
Okay,
I'm hearing.
I took it as we needed it. Okay, I'll withdraw that. Then I am with you on that. You can take it. No, I'll let you make a motion if I can just have 2 seconds. Yeah. If you take a 12-month average, I mean, you know, of everybody's individual bill, then you can make the next year. Of course, it's like he said, at the end of the year, whether it's lower or higher, you have to make up that part, whoever, you know, of each bill. And I think that will be a good way to do it, is just average it out on the variable side part.
I would like to take the action to go back and take a look at our billing vendor to see what we can and can't do. Would that be okay?
Yeah. I'm gonna let you do that. Thank you.
Mayor, I move that we direct the city manager to go back and formulate a plan that addresses the smoothing out of the monthly electric bills to a variable plan and present it to the council at a later date.
Second.
Our last item, anybody have any comments they would like to add before we adjourn? Nope, nope.
I do.
Oh,
A
yay.
recap of any action items that we've got.
Yeah, that's Jennifer. Do you want to come to Mike and recap those for me?
So the first action item I had was the task force is going, well, that's for the task force for the recycling center.
The task force for the
To
recycling.
do a cost comparison on the recycling.
Okay.
My other action item was to change the fee for the recycling membership from 75 to 150. We're going to change that to 50 to $100 for annually.
Okay.
Before the end of the year, we need to get the city managers to come back with a staffing plan and funding mechanism to address the economic development and strategy.
And funding.
Strategy, staffing and funding. Oh my. And then the last one was on the variable rate to with that action item that we just did for the variable rate. That's all I have. If you have,
We moved the due date to the 15th, right?
yes, the due
Yeah.
date to the 15th.
Effective, what did we
On
say, October 1st? November 1st, November 1st.
Yes.
November 1. Is everybody good with everything? Any questions? What's wrong, Mitch? You look like you just busted at the seams over here.
I want to have a little bit of really positive news closing this. And if I could ask Chief Repko a question.
Come on up, come on down.
Really, Chief Repko, I do want to ask you a question. Rain on my parade. I'm just interested to see, I know that word may have gotten out on what we're proposing in terms of supporting the police department, the salaries and everything. Have you had any reaction out in the community?
In regards to staffing? Yeah, I mean, I had a guy leave my office about 4:30 today that's interested in working here now, that he's seeing some proposed raises here in Smithville. And I appreciate Tom's comments earlier in response to some citizen comments about that, you know, we do ask that we do, you know, apply for the job, but at the same time, you know, there have been years that the staff has gone without. And so I appreciate the council's understanding that now's the time. In light of the workforce, the shortage in officers, and what the citizens expect, I think now's the time. So, but yes, I have, there's some traction even before y'all actually approve it. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation and the consideration. And I know all the staff does at PD2. They're super thankful, grateful.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate you.
All right, we're going to adjourn this meeting and thank you all for coming and hanging out with us tonight.